Good morning and welcome back to the Sage Sorority. I'm your host, Shantel. How are we all doing, guys? Happy Thursday. How is everyone? We are halfway through September and I feel like it is going so quickly. The fact that it's already the 18th is insane because I really feel like September just started. I know people say that often about months, but I don't always feel like that. But I definitely feel like that this month. And I was even like recapping what I've even done since I last spoke to you guys last week. And a lot has happened. Tube strikes are over for now. And just praying to God that they have reached some sort of resolution and we don't need to revisit that in the near future because, yeah, it was not great. I've just been staying low key. The weather's still a bit weird. I have been really on my working out shit, like really trying to get back into it now that the weather has cooled down. Social life has kind of mellowed out, kind of not really. It's a lot easier for me to stay on track with the workouts. I don't know if you guys are on TikTok or if you are really on TikTok like that, but there is a DJ by the name of DJ AG, and he kind of just like really popped off from TikTok. He used to go live all the time. He still does, actually. He goes live in Brixton and in King's Cross, and he grew like a massive following, and he's had celebrities like Craig David, Sierra, Gigs, Stormzy, like everyone has been there. And it's just been this London lore that's been so nice to watch. Anyways, long story short, he DJ'd at Soho House the other night, and I went with a few friends. It was so much fun. I haven't danced like that in such a long time. It was so good. Proper dancing when you're sweaty and having a great time. And everyone in the crowd was having a great time. It was such a fun night. And then the next day, I had to wake up slightly sluggish and watch one of my friends get married. And it was so beautiful. We went to a town hall just in South London. And it's definitely different than a lot of the other town halls because most town halls, like it's kind of just the building. You're in and out for 20 minutes versus this one is a little bit bigger. So you're able to do it outside if you want to. They also have like a little gazebo outside that you're able to do like a Prosecco toast. Most of the other town halls in London, if you're thinking of like the really popular ones on TikTok, like Islington or Marylebone or Chelsea, they don't really offer that. It's kind of just you go in for your civil wedding, you take pictures and then you leave. But this was gorgeous. It was at Morden Town Hall for anyone who's interested. And it was so nice. Of course I cried. Oh my God. I like heard the bridal entry music. They were entering together and it was Alicia Keys, If I Ain't Got You. And like, I immediately got teary eyed and I turned around to one of my friends and I was like, I'm already emotional and nothing's even happened yet. It was so funny, but we all had an amazing time. It was beautiful to watch their union. And yeah, that was my Sunday. And I'm just here low key. Obviously this comes out on Thursday. And just know that Thursday morning, I am fighting for my life to get Ariana Grande tickets. My queen is finally back on tour. When I say I am so excited, it's truly an understatement. She is my queen. I stan. This is my Super Bowl. Like, I am so fucking excited for her to come to London. She doesn't have like a ton of global dates because I was even saying, okay, if I don't get London tickets, which I know I will, where else would I be willing to travel to? She's got, I think, some shows in Boston and she's got some shows in New York and that's it. She's also not going to Toronto, but she's got 2 or 3 days in Montreal. Like, I don't know if maybe what I saw was only a clip, like a short form of her dates, but I found that kind of weird, especially like the 2 or 3 dates in Montreal, but none in Toronto and none in Vancouver, which sometimes stars like to go to Vancouver because it's really easy to get to from LA and everyone goes to LA anyways. So yeah, and she's not going to LA, she's going to Oakland. I don't know what's going on, but you guys, she is in London for 2 fucking weeks. Like absolute madness. I thought Beyonce doing 5 or 6 shows for Cowboy Carter was like mega status, which it is because Beyonce did those shows at Tottenham, which is way bigger than the O2, which is where Ariana Grande is doing hers. I think she also added in so many dates because she's not doing any other UK shows. She's not doing any other European shows from what I've seen. For those of you that kind of remember, years ago, there was a terrorist attack at her show that was crazy sad. That was just awful and horrendous. And I don't see any other European shows. So obviously everyone's going to come to London. She's literally in town for 2 weeks. I think there's 10 shows. I don't think I've ever seen a celebrity or performer perform that many shows in the same place. That's it. There's no other city that has that many shows. So obviously I'm gassed. I'm going to get one of these shows and one of these tickets. I think this is the first concert I'm going to go to by myself. Like, I'm not messaging anyone. I'm not begging anyone to come with me. Like, I literally don't care. I am going to purchase one ticket and one ticket only. If I don't get tickets today, I will get them on after sale. I really don't care. Pre-sale was yesterday, which I missed. I'm really excited. I know that no matter what, the shows are next year. Like, they literally start end of August and go all the way till September 1st. So I will get a ticket. I'm not worried about this. I will see Ariana Grande. I'm so excited. She has not gone on tour since, I think, before Sweetener. Like, she took a break from tour and then she dropped music like during COVID and lockdown. And then obviously she was part of Wicked. So that's like a huge other delay. And yeah, I think we are probably like 3 albums out from her last tour. So obviously this is The Art of the Eternal Sunshine. I think that's the album name. Don't kill me. But I can't wait to see her perform all the other fucking bangers that she has dropped in like the last 5 years. When I say I'm so excited, I know I already said it, but I am so excited. I cannot wait to see the Queen in London. Oh my gosh. Anyways, highlight of my week, literally cannot wait. And yeah, if you're listening to this on Thursday morning, just send me good vibes. The Queen is coming to London and I'm so excited. But anyways, that is not what today's episode is about. You guys, I think it's really important to be interesting. And that doesn't mean being fake or inauthentic. And that doesn't mean like, oh, I've traveled 40 plus countries and it's not someone who's like, quote unquote, the life of the party. That's not what being interesting is about. And I think we all want to be seen as relatively interesting, but I want to emphasize that interesting isn't about being loud or having necessarily the best stories or going viral on social media or having a lot of followers. It's truly none of that. It is about cultivating a life and a mind that has layers. Layers and texture to your life is the underbelly of this entire podcast. Like, can we do more? Can we be more? Can we expand our purview and our personalities and our lives in a juicy way that feels authentic? That is always the undercurrent of this podcast. And I think that talking about how to be interesting is adding another perspective to that. And I mean like the kind of magnetism that comes from curiosity and a real interior world that you're actually focusing on. I talk a lot about being intentional and not living on autopilot. And this is another reference point to that, just coming from a different perspective. Because if your personality is really covered with like your job and your last holiday, and to the moms out there, your kids, I'm giving you permission to expand. And I'll say I'm inviting you to expand should you choose to take my invitation. The most compelling people I know are not the loudest or even the most online, truly, but they are people who notice things, they surprise you, they have taste, they maybe read oddly specific things or have different niche interests. Maybe they can tell you where to get the most excellent martini in your city, or maybe they can tell you where to get the best dim sum on the Western Hemisphere. Whatever. Maybe they have a funny little anecdote about perfume or beauty or work or whatever. I will explain more as the episode goes on. And it's not about being performative or about putting on a performance. I also want to emphasize that it is just about attention, and dare I say, like cultivated attention, paying attention to your own life, not doing things on autopilot, not having a whole week or a whole day and someone's like, what did you do? And you're like, I have no idea. So today, obviously, that's what I want to talk about. A life that really feeds your mind, gives you stories, and sharpens your presence. No pretending, just really genuine cultivation and genuine attention. So yeah, I hope that all of that is like intriguing and enticing. So grab your coffee, your tea, or your water, settle in, and let's get into it. Okay, so first we need to redefine interesting. And I want to start by saying that I think something that holds a lot of us back is thinking that being interesting means being extroverted or constantly busy. And that is not the case. I know lots of people who exhaust themselves trying to be on when they're out, thinking like that's what makes them compelling, or even trying to be a little bit of a snob. And honestly, like it's lame and you suck. Like, and the only people who are impressed by that are other lames. Like the most interesting people I've ever met are often sometimes the quietest in the room. And quiet also does not equal awkward. I want to emphasize that as well. Quiet does not equal anxiety, does not equal awkward. Like confident, quiet, soft power is a real thing. And it is something that speaks volumes without you opening up your mouth. You want to think about someone you've ever met who you found interesting or told a good story. She's probably not dominating the conversation, but when she speaks with conviction, passion, and people tend to tune in. Or you have a friend who always has like a random did you know, because they like to go down random rabbit holes or they listen to podcasts, maybe even the Sage Sorority. That person that's doing that genuinely, they're not performing. They're just genuinely fascinated by the world. And I can relate because I'm kind of like that as well. I'm very curious. I like to know things. I find random things interesting. I like to connect the dots and I like to share that information with others. It's because this person actually notices these things and they pay attention. And I'm encouraging you guys to pay attention and fill in the gaps with things that you find interesting, therefore to be more interesting. I hope that makes sense. It's curiosity manifested, IRL. It's having a rich interior life that spills over into your conversations. It's being someone who collects experiences and insights, not necessarily just for Instagram stories, although that is okay too. We're not performing. If you are interested in something and you are sharing it online, to me, I don't think that necessarily equates to you being beg or you doing things for validation. I think those two things can be synonymous and often are. Sometimes they're not, but often I think they are. But it's for the simple joy of just understanding more of how the world works and how things come together and your part in all of it. With that said, you have to feed your mind and you have to feed your mind on purpose. Actually, okay, let me say that again. You have to feed your mind on purpose because your mind is being fed regardless. We all live in algorithmic bubbles. You are not exempt from that. You have to break yours intentionally. And what I've been saying lately is you need to fuck up your timeline. And I mean that in like your own life, not necessarily online, although that is important as well. How can you throw a wrench, a positive wrench in your own timeline? This also ties in with like manifestation and quantum jumping and all that kind of stuff. And that's not what this episode is about, but it is worth mentioning. Diversify, diversify, diversify your inputs. This is key to being more interesting and really stretching your brain. Most people read the same type of books, listen to the same type of podcasts that confirm what we already think, follow people who share our exact worldview. But to truly be interesting, you have to step outside things. You have to be able to maybe agree to disagree, listen to someone that has a differing opinion than you. And I say this with a grain of salt because I know that this is often pushed down people's throats when it comes to the isms in life, you know, the racism, the sexism, things like that. And put that aside because I think there is a balance of doing that and also not absorbing someone's hatred. But if you can separate it from that, we can also just talk about general things that we have differing views on. Like maybe your friend really loves a pear-shaped diamond as an engagement ring and you are team cushion. Like it doesn't always have to be the most intense opinion, but you want to hear someone's differing worldview. Sameness gets boring. I'm encouraging you to deliberately seek out information that challenges you, surprises you, or teaches you something that's completely out of your general wheelhouse. The easiest way to do that, I'm going to be honest, is the scrolling, your TikToks, and your Instagrams, especially on TikTok. If you're fed something that maybe you don't agree with, watch the whole video. Like instead of being like, yeah, I'm not feeling this, just force yourself to watch the entire video. And at the end of the video, if you're like, yeah, I just don't agree with that, that's cool. But now you know someone else's perspective and now you know maybe the opposite perspective of yours. And how do you counter that with the way you feel and how do you rationalize that? This expands your mind so much and reduces like cognitive dissonance. I really believe so. Another easy way is reading. You guys know I'm going to talk about reading all the time from the highest rooftop because I will die on this hill. Reading, podcasts, audiobooks, whatever it is, change up your genre. If you love contemporary fiction, maybe pick up a biography from someone from the 19th century. If you love business podcasts, maybe you try like a self-development podcast to still have something that's nonfiction, but something that's layered and cocooned with a little bit more empathy. Even Substacks. Follow a few that just have nothing to do with your professional life and maybe just speak about things from a personal point of view. The key here is not to just digest more, right? We are already getting so much information on a daily basis. I was watching a YouTube video from Dr. Tara, I think she's a neuroscientist, and she said that if you were to read an issue of the New York Times today, that is more information than we would have gotten in our entire lifespans 100 years ago. That's insane. And yes, our brains are malleable and do adapt, but we are still getting information at rapid speed. Some might say it's good, some might say it's bad. I honestly don't know, but I do know that getting a lot of information and retaining information is like the move. And I know that that's something a lot of people struggle with these days. So it's not just read a different genre, read a new book, listen to a podcast, read the newspaper, download Substack, watch a 10-minute long TikTok video. No, watch a 30-minute long YouTube video. Those things are great, but the point is you need to retain what you're actually reading and what you're actually listening to. Watch it twice if you have to. Watch it 3 times if you have to. You need to be able to digest and not just consume information. When something lands, and it doesn't have to be the entire thing, you don't have to watch a TikTok video or a YouTube video or listen to a book and feel like everything was retained and every chapter was mind-blowing, and it's fine. Sometimes it's a quote, sometimes it's a thought, sometimes it's a point of view. But when you do have that hit, that light bulb moment, ask yourself, what does this connect to? What does this change? What do I think about this? Does this reinforce what I believe? Does this reinforce what I've seen before? Do I like the way this was phrased? Does this tickle my brain in a way that I haven't really explored before? That's what I want you to do. And this can be done in so many different ways. Sometimes I'll read something and I'll like I said, the point of view or the quote or, oh, that's an interesting thought. Sometimes it's a word oh, I don't know that word. Let me write it down. I watched a TikTok the other day of a Black man who has lived and worked in China, I believe, for many years. And he's lived in different cities in China and he was rating all of them. And the particular video that I saw on my For You page was about his experience in Guangzhou. In Guangzhou, he was saying how some of the best food he's ever had in China is in Guangzhou, and they speak Cantonese, and he really enjoys that. But he was also saying that some of the worst racism he's ever experienced in China was predominantly in Guangzhou. He said a word, and I even wrote it down, desolatory. And I was like, I've never heard that word before. I'm just Googling the definition right now. Oh, wait.
Desultory.
Sorry, desultory. He said the word desultory in his video, and I immediately was like, oh, I need to stop. I need to write that down because I need to get that definition because I've never heard that word before. For anyone who cares, it just means lacking a clear plan, purpose, or enthusiasm, resulting in something that is disconnected, unmethodical, or haphazard. It can describe activities performed without serious effort, thoughts that are random and incidental, or even a performance or progress that is disappointing. So yeah, anyways, but that's what I mean by paying attention, right? I'm not just watching his video while I'm doing the dishes, while I have an instrumental music on the background. I'm actually paying attention. I'm focused. I'm watching the captions on his TikTok. I'm listening to what he's saying. And because I'm listening and I'm actively paying attention, I can retain something, which is a new word. I'm able to minimize the noise because I'm staying focused on what I'm doing, and the new word is able to pop out. I hope that wasn't too much word jargon, but it's just to underscore how important paying attention to what you're doing really is, especially when you're looking to retain information. And I really believe that's a huge, huge key thing because that is how you build a rich, textured interior landscape and brain that can make you more genuinely compelling. Okay. Being an interesting person isn't regulated to reading interesting things. It's also doing interesting things, right? This is key. And a critical part of that, and a part that I want to emphasize again, is that it doesn't have to be big. These don't have to be large, incredible jaunts. They can be small little switches in your daily life. I'm not saying for you to be interesting, the only way for you to be interesting is to like sail around the world or quit your job and go backpacking through Asia or, like have 30 kids. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about inserting little pockets of whimsy and exploration into your regular life. These could be like little micro adventures, and they're a really easy way to add texture to your story bank. The easiest, I think, plain way is taking a different route home and paying attention to what you see. You're doing something outside of your normal routine with intention and attention. This is key. Intention and attention. Instead of your usual weekend brunch, take yourself to a classical concert. Maybe at Royal Albert Hall if you're local. Sit there, listen. How did you feel afterwards? It is okay if after something you're like, okay, that was an experience, probably won't do that again, but it's okay. If you always buy your milk and your meat at the same grocery store, maybe try a different grocery store. Maybe try a farmer's market. Maybe you walk to the grocery store instead of driving. You know what I mean? That then becomes a story. Or if you want to push the boundaries a little bit more, you can also just do something random. Join a paddle club. Everyone loves paddle. Join a run club. Everyone is running these days. Also, side note, did you guys know that paddle is like the fastest growing sport in Europe? I think I mentioned that on the pod before, which is like kind of crazy because it's really just like an offspring of tennis. And I'm surprised that like people gravitate towards it so much when it's not like something radically new. I think part of that though is because tennis has always been associated with a higher barrier of entry, and paddle was never like that. Paddle was never like this luxe thing. And I think that that's also why people don't feel as intimidated towards it with tennis, because you talk to someone who has maybe played tennis for a long time and they can be kind of dismissive in terms of you starting as an adult or starting in middle age. And paddle, I don't feel like is like that. I feel like it's very much come one, come all, If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, but that's kind of that's my sociological theory on it. Anyways, a micro adventure, me going to Ariana Grande by myself and literally planning to do this a year ahead. That's a micro adventure. I want to go. I'm going to go and I'm going to push myself because I've always wanted to go to a concert by myself and I've never quite gotten over the finish line. And I think this is ripe for the taking. Pottery classes, paint by numbers, whatever, a discourse, a workshop, a lecture, episode 2, a case for optimism. That episode was completely created and inspired by a lecture that I had gone to listening to the author. Again, put yourself in different situations. I've talked about Luma, some networking events that are on there. There's some other great apps like Clique. Just add a little bit of flair and spice and whimsy to something that you've already done. If you like to go to Pilates, maybe do a Pilates class instead of working out at home. Maybe do a Pilates class that is like on the Clique app and you guys go to one central place. It's a bunch of people and then you get like matcha after. You're still doing what you would normally do. So it's not taking you too far out of your comfort zone, but it's in a new space, new venue. That is how you expand your current horizon and create micro adventures without losing yourself in the process. And again, I think one thing when it comes back to hobbies that people kind of get stuck on is they think that like they have to do this forever. Like you don't have to do anything forever. Like this is not school. You're not a child. Like you have free will and autonomy. Like for a long time, I wanted to do singing lessons and I still do. I want to do like one-offs. Maybe I'm going to do it and I'm not going to like it. So I don't want to be locked into something. When the time is right, I will find the perfect instructor who is going to let me wail in their presence. And maybe I'll do it for one class. Maybe I'll do it for 10. I don't know. But I do think people get caught up in the sense that you have to stick with it and you don't have to stick with it. You can just try. You go to the same restaurant for date night every Wednesday or once a month. Can you order something different? This is something I've been trying to do. Again, micro adventures that truly fuck up the timeline. How about your coffee order? Can we change it up? Your favorite cocktail. Maybe instead of doing a vodka-based cocktail, you try gin. Maybe instead of gin, you try tequila. Maybe instead of whiskey, you try bourbon. You know what I mean? For me, a micro adventure that I also love is just going to different restaurants. I really like to keep track of different restaurants that are opening up in London or things I see on TikTok. And I have the longest list and I used to just check them off whenever I go. I've kind of like stalled on it now. I tend to be going to like places I've been before, but even in my neighborhood, there's so many places I haven't been. And I was like, yeah, I need to start doing more locally. That's another good point. Like how much of your neighborhood do you actually know? You should try and know it like back to front. And that's more than just driving through or walking through. Like, do you go to the eateries? Do you go to the coffee shops? Do you go to the clothing stores? Do you go to the little knickknack stores? Like, you should try and know your area very well. Again, a really easy way to have a micro adventure. The whole point of this, I know I've been kind of like yammering on about this, is it pulls you out of autopilot and adds whimsy to your experience. Most of us, honestly, me included, spend our weeks on such predictable patterns that you just stop noticing things because we are just wired that way. You stop noticing things because you're doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm not saying that's bad because that has its own value. We commute the same way. We eat at the same places. We have the same conversations. This is a big one, especially for women. But when you deliberately throw a loop into your timeline, even a small one, suddenly it wakes you up again. It's like a splash of cold water for your system. You're noticing things. You're having experiences worth sharing. Instead of wearing black all the time, can we put some brown in there? Can we put some navy? Instead of wearing white nails on your toes. Can we switch it up? Can we do a little pale pink? Can we do a red? Like, can we switch things up? And then be present for that switch up and be mindful rather than operating on cruise control. That is how you become magnetic. People can sense when you are truly engaged with life versus going through the motions. One of the best compliments I've ever received, and I've received quite a bit, not to shoot my own horn, is that I'm very sensual and I engage with senses in my life. And it's something I've never put into words for myself. But as soon as it was said, I was like, you're absolutely right. I love to tap in and be present for the way things feel, touch, smell. Like, I love those things. Where I am, looking up, breathing fresh air. Like, I don't take those things for granted at all. And I do try and always kind of like tune in as much as I can because, again, I'm human, I'm fallible, and I'm liable to just be on autopilot like everyone else. But there is truly a palpable energy, and I can't stress this enough, that comes from someone who's actively curious about the world around them, their inner world, your world, and things around them. It is so real. So like I said, try a different route home, stop somewhere you've never been, order something you can't pronounce, strike up a conversation with someone you wouldn't normally talk to. And this can be small, right? This can be like you are going to get coffee or you're going to the grocery store and someone says hi and you say, hi, how are you doing? Like, I do that often. And believe me, there are lots of times where people just ignore me. People don't hear. They just are waiting for me to finish that so that I can proceed with my order or whatever. And sometimes I'll double down and repeat it like, hi, how are you? And then you immediately, no joke, you see their shoulders drop. Sometimes they'll smile, but you see like a calmness come over them. It's just like, yeah, like I'm here, you're here. This is the only moment that exists. Like, hi, how are you doing? I'm not saying let's have a full-fledged conversation at the cash desk. Like, I'm not doing that. But it's like, hey, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Like, I'm telling you, it creates ripples. I want you to notice how it feels to slightly be off your usual script. I hope that makes sense. Another reason why we get into this trap is because we fall into very specific roles, right? Some given, some forced upon, but it is what it is. Partners, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wives, children, work, beautiful and demanding. But who are you outside of these things? Something I've been really mulling over, I would say maybe the last month, is who am I outside of the roles, outside of the labels? It is a really good question to explore and just see what comes up for you. If that question feels empty, don't shame yourself. That's just data for you to operate and move forward with. Obviously, kids and partners and jobs take up a huge part of our day. That is the way it works. And frankly, they also deserve that. Your partners deserve your time and love and attention. So do your children and so does your work. But you have to ask yourself, who are you without those things? Not like as a lifestyle declaration, but maybe just as like a little bit of an inquiry. The question isn't about abandoning your responsibilities. It's more about rediscovering like your axis, the interior life that orients everything about your choices, your friendships, and how you show up in the world. When you know a piece of yourself that exists outside of those labels and roles, you immediately become more interesting to yourself and others. And that is how you protect your emotional sovereignty, your emotional autonomy, your emotional freedom. And you guys know how I feel about those big words on this podcast. That is like the thesis and the axis and the North Star of my life. If you strip away the people you care for and the roles that you perform, who's left to have dinner with? It's not selfish. It's truly like survival. Like identity is a muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies, right? Now, if you don't care to be more than those labels, then this is not going to resonate. And that's okay. Like I always say with you guys, I'm in the trenches with you. I'm also human and I'm also figuring out life each day at a time. Again, I'm going to reference my favorite Oscar Wilde quote. I've said it before. I'll say it again. We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. I think, first of all, this quote is so good and so evergreen and ties into so many things. Like, anyways, it's one of my favorite quotes and I think it's a goodie. And I reference that in this moment because, like I said, like we're all kind of there figuring it out. And people who know themselves are interesting because they have a consistent internal world to share. Again, if it doesn't relate to you, it doesn't relate to you, and that's okay. But if this sparks anything, a little bit, a little tickle, a little light bulb, then we're holding hands and we're walking through it together. So here are a few little examples. Obviously, I've listed a ton already of things that you can do. If you feel like, girl, I have just been on autopilot, not for a couple months, but for a couple years. These kids have me in the trenches. Like I've got home, I've got work. I don't really know what's going on outside of that. Let's go through it together. No worries. And also, no story is original. So it's you and millions of others. So don't feel bad. Okay. We're going to do a little audit. 30 minutes of your time. Don't tell me you don't have 30 minutes because I know most of you scroll on your phone for longer than that. No phone, just set an alarm and tell me or list out all of the things you would do, like all of the things you would do today, not a dream day, but all of the things you would do today if no schedule existed. Like no one's schedule mattered and no schedule existed. Like your kid's schedule didn't exist. Your partner's schedule didn't exist. Your schedule didn't exist. Like just imagine none of that mattered. What would you do? And keep it simple. Like it doesn't have to be some outlandish thing that you would never do otherwise, unless that's what you generally do. But usually people don't stray too far out of their normal boxes. Would you read? Would you wander? Would you do something random? Would you clean? List out everything. Okay, maybe it might not take you 30 minutes. Maybe it will, because it might be hard for you to get in that mindset. And then you're going to take 2 of those things and you're going to schedule one of them for the coming week and schedule one for the week after. You are going to take what you would do on no schedule and now fix it into a schedule in your life. Then you're going to block 90 minutes this weekend as your time. Find it. Babysitter, friend, cousin. This is me time. No partner, no kid, no work. This is not 90 minutes for you to do work. This is not 90 minutes for you to clean. Treat it like a very important meeting. Treat it like an investor call. Treat it like your boss wants to talk to you for 90 minutes. You would be on, ready, Zoom. You would be on, dressed at work. You know, you would not be checking your phone. You would not be doing any of that because this is very important. Treat it like an important meeting because it absolutely is. Next, you're going to journal. So this is for my journal girlies. You're going to have 2 columns. I used to and I might. So one column, you're going to list all the things you used to do that you loved. Maybe reading at night, hobbies, places, cocktails you had, food you used to eat, whatever. All the things you used to do that you love that you don't do anymore. On the next column, you're going to pick things you've always thought I might try one day. You know, like, oh, I always said I would like to go to play flag football one day at the Common. I always said I'd like to take a hip hop class. I always said I'd like to go to a university lecture. I always said I'd love to join a book club. Put all those things in the other column, and you're going to pick one from each column, and you're going to weave them into your life between now and the end of the year. 4th, you should have known this was coming, solo date. You guys know I'm a big fan of doing things by yourself. Solo date. Doesn't have to be a day, can just be a few hours, maybe between school drop off and school pickup. Can be some early morning time in your house that maybe everyone's still asleep. So you're like, you know what? I can't leave my house because I have to leave with my kids. And if I leave with my kids, there's no such thing as solo. I get it. But maybe you're going to go to bed early that night and you're going to wake up early and you are going to make yourself the nicest breakfast, the same type of breakfast that you would order if you were out with your girls at a beautiful French brasserie on a Saturday sipping mimosas. That's what you're going to do for yourself. Maybe you're not going to have the mimosas because you know the kids are going to wake up very soon, but you're going to have good orange juice. You're just going to sit ideally in front of a window, even if it's cold, just in front of the window so that light can hit you. I'm all about rebalancing your circadian rhythm, and you're just going to enjoy it. Like, you're not going to eat and scroll. You're just going to sit, enjoy, and think about how this makes you feel. All the things. Maybe you feel relieved. Maybe you feel at ease. Maybe you're like, damn, I want to start every morning like this. Maybe you feel a bit bored. Maybe you feel a bit uneasy. Maybe you feel a bit anxious. Maybe you feel a bit lonely. Let those feelings come. I always say emotions are like waves. They will come in, but if you give them time, they will go out. The point is to experience. The point is to tap in. The point is to look inward. I hope that this is resonating. It also becomes a story that you can share. So document how you felt, a couple lines in your notes app, in your journal. Again, you're adding texture to your life. You're not changing your life unless you want to. You're adding texture to what's already there. Gorgeous. And then finally, pick 3 words that feel really true for you and do a values check. There is a list on Google. If I can find it linked, then I'll link it in the show notes. But if you Google it, it's like a really popular list of values. I've done this before where you're, I think, supposed to pick only 10. And then from that, you would kind of like rank them. I highly encourage that exercise. I think it can be a really good driving force for your life. And you should do it every few years or so because your life changes, right? Maybe your values when you were 23 look very different at 29, look very different at 35, look very different at 47. It's not about like roles or job titles. It's words like curiosity, steady, loyal, sensual, freedom. Like, you want to check in on your values, save them to your phone, and use them when you're making big decisions, but also use them when you're making smaller ones. That's how you stay tapped in, tuned in, and turned on to your own life. You don't need big blocks of time to make change, I'm telling you. 20 to 30 minutes, 20 to 90 minutes a week, it compounds. Everything you do regularly compounds in your life, good or bad. We know this with investing, right? We know this with saving. It's the same thing. Block this time for yourself. Keep it simple, repeat it, and protect it. When you cultivate a life beyond the roles that are imposed on you, the roles that you've chosen for yourself, you produce new inputs. What do new inputs produce? New downloads, new stories, and a steadier emotional core. That means better storytelling, genuine curiosity, magnetism that isn't performative, authenticity that is clear as day and makes you more interesting. You have to ask better questions. Now, I'm not going to go too much into this because we already touched on this in my dating episode, but it truly applies to all relationships. Interesting people don't just wait to be interesting, and they also make other people feel interesting. And the easiest and the fastest way to do that, other than being present, is to ask better questions. Things like, how was your weekend? What do you do? How's work? It's not that they're bad questions. It's just that, frankly, they're lazy ones. They invite generic answers. Generic answers lead to very forgettable conversations. You want to make people think. Invite them to share something that they actually care about. Invite them to think differently. Instead of what do you do? What's a recent book you read, or what's a recent podcast you listened to, or what's your favorite type of music? Instead of how was your weekend, asked what surprised you recently, or hey, have you heard about XYZ? What do you think? These questions give people permission to be interesting and have interesting thoughts and experiences, because most people do have interesting thoughts and experiences, but they're rarely invited to share them, and they often don't prompt themselves to share them because they don't want to come off as too much, arrogant, or pompous. So when you ask someone their latest obsession or what they've been learning recently, you're essentially saying them and giving them permission that, hey, I think your interior world is interesting and it's worth exploring. And the thing is, guys, is when you're genuinely interested and curious about other people, it also makes you more interesting by extension. People will always remember how you made them feel, right? That's the golden quote. And if you made them feel heard and fascinating, they will associate that feeling to you. It is truly a win-win. The crucial part of this is you actually have to listen to the answers, not just wait for your turn to talk. This is key. You have to actually listen. Listen to retain and to understand, not so you can jump in with your moment to speak. Genuinely absorb what they're saying. Ask follow-up questions. Make connections to things that they've mentioned before. This is all much easier to do when you're not multitasking while you're talking to someone. Put your phone down, put it away, actually listen to what they're saying. Show that you're building a mental file of who they are beyond their job title and relationship status. It's also wildly attractive. In a world where everyone is truly like half distracted by their phones, being able to give someone your full attention is a glorious spot to be in and sets you apart of the crowd. TLDR, be interested to be more interesting. Trust me on this one. And I think that is the perfect place to pause for now. We've talked about curiosity, feeding your mind, adding micro adventures, reconnecting with who you are outside of your roles, and of course, my big one, asking better questions. Next week in part 2, we're going to go deeper into how you actually share your experiences through storytelling, cultivating niche interests, and of course, the subtle art of charm. So if today was about building your inner world, next week is going to be about how you express it with presence and magnetism. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I hope you guys like this episode of The Sage Sorority. If it resonated with you, share it with someone who you think might need the reminder that interesting isn't about performance. She's interesting as she is. We just got to tweak a few things. Curiosity, connection, and of course, making your juicy life a little bit more textured and layered. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you next week for part 2 of how to be interesting. Have a beautiful week and a beautiful weekend. Love you. Bye.